Taylor here with Reality Canine, and today we are talking about what to look for in a dog trainer. Okay, so I have here three categories: my green flags, my red flags, and my gray flags. Okay, so these are things that are a plus that you should look for in a dog trainer. These are things that you should run from in a dog trainer. And my gray flags are things that I think people put a lot of weight on that don't necessarily mean a whole lot. So my first green flag is they have fixed your problem before, okay? So if the trainer can demonstrate that they have successfully addressed the issue that you're having, that's a really good thing. If they have reviews, they have testimonials, they have videos on YouTube proving that they have successfully solved that problem before, it's a really good sign, and it can give you a lot of confidence in the ability for them to do that for you. So you say, I'm having a lot of trouble with my dog lunging at strangers on walks. You go to a dog trainer's page, they can show that other people have had that issue, and they can show it before and after, for example, or there's a testimonial from the client saying, my dog had this issue, they were able to fix it. That is a golden thing to look for, okay? My first red flag is quick fixes. The dog training industry is not regulated. The dog training industry is a lot like the fitness industry, in that you have a lot of people that are selling a lot of snake oil, that are telling you that they can fix this complex thing in 3 days, you just have to do this, right? And the reality is, although there are some things that you can address very quickly with certain dogs, most issues that are complex, like aggression, are not things that are just going to be fixed in one day, okay? And the people that claim that they can fix things like that in one day usually are doing things that are very unethical in order to suppress behaviors in the short term, but in the long term those behaviors will come back. Just like in the world of fitness, right? The practical approach, right, the things that actually work are not things that are going to happen in 1 day or 2 days or, you know, whatever. So please, please, please steer clear of quick fixes. My first gray flag. So this is the first thing that a lot of people put a lot of weight on it, but it doesn't necessarily mean what they think it means, is years of experience. Now, hopefully you look at me and you say, well, gee, Taylor, you look like a younger person. That seems like an advantageous thing for you to say, as opposed to somebody that has 40 years of experience, right? They've been doing this longer than you've been alive. And I will acknowledge that that may seem like a conflict of interest. However, again, I want to impart on you that dog training is not a regulated industry. So if you had a heart surgeon, for example, and he's been a heart surgeon for 40 years, you would rightfully think, wow, he has done a lot of heart surgeries, he is very experienced, he must be very competent at what he does. The difference between the heart surgeon industry and the dog training industry is that if the heart surgeon is doing a bad job, he doesn't get to be a heart surgeon anymore, okay? He loses his license, there's medical malpractice claims, there's things that exist in his industry as enforcement mechanisms to ensure that he is at least competent. Nothing exists in the dog training industry for that. So you have people that could be doing very bad work. They could be doing very bad things to dogs behind closed doors, and they could be doing that for 30 years, and there is really nothing short of, you know, law enforcement cases, and in some of these cases, that would be stopping them. Or you just have a person that's just not a good dog trainer. They're not giving people results. Now you could say, well, they would have bad reviews. Potentially. There's ways people can get around that. My point is, if you're doing 30 years of crap, it's still 30 years of crap, right? Now, on the other hand, somebody could be a very good dog trainer and they could be spending a very long amount of time perfecting their craft, getting better, continuing their education. That's great. That would be an advantage, right? Those years of experience in that case. So take it for what it is. It could be a very, very good thing, but not necessarily because of the nature of this industry, okay? My next green flag is they care about your dog. Now, this might seem like a very obvious one. Of course, you would want them to care about your dog. But what I mean by this is, do they care about your dog more than competing things, okay? So anytime money is involved, anytime money is exchanging hands, we need to think about incentives. In dog training, there are instances in which the trainer might be incentivized to do something because it will make them more money, but it's not necessarily in the best interest of the dog. I will give you an example. I showed up for a one-on-one session for one of my clients the other week, and right before I had showed up, the dog was running around in the backyard and she had hurt her leg, so she was limping. So I show up for the session, start doing different commands with the dog, different position changes, and the dog is sticking its leg out to the side. One of the classic signs of an ACL tear. And I said, we're not going to train today. I don't believe it's ethical when this dog is showing signs of being injured to continue having her do position changes where she could potentially injure herself more. I don't think that's fair. And I'm not going to charge them for the session, and I'm not going to do that just because it's going to make me money. So it's very important when you're looking for trainers that they care about the dog first and foremost. They're going to do what's in the best interest of the dog. All right, my next red flag is they can't explain why they're doing what they're doing. This is a big one. When you are competent at something, you should be able to explain it to someone else at a 5th grade reading level, generally speaking, okay? So if you ask the dog trainer about why they train the way they train, or why they're doing a specific thing that they're doing, and they cannot explain it to you in a way that you understand, or they respond with something like, well, that's just how I've done it, or because that's just how my mentor told me to do it, right? That is not a good sign, because it's just what my mentor told me, Well, what if your mentor told you something wrong? Or that's how I learned how to do it. Well, what if you learned how to do it suboptimally, right? Why are you doing what you're doing? And can you explain it to me, the person who is paying you money to do this, right? Dog trainers have an obligation to be competent and to be able to be transparent and explain to you why they're doing what they're doing, okay? So if they can't explain why in ways that you understand, it's not a good thing. My next gray flag is certifications. Okay. Certifications. So certifications, if you ever see some dog trainers have letters after their name, they'll put letters after their name. That means that they did something to get a certification from a certain body or organization of dog training. Now you need to understand, in the United States, there is no regulatory body for dog training, okay? There's organizations that exist that will offer certifications, but they are not, they don't enforce laws, they don't determine laws regarding dog training. There's no industry standard at all. The problem with that is a lot of these organizations have vastly different criteria for how to certify someone, and many of them are motivated by their own ideologies about tools. They're very tool focused rather than science focused, and so that can cause a lot of bias. You need to understand, some of these people that are getting these certifications, they can literally take a 20-minute test online and never have to handle a dog and get letters after their name, okay? So certifications are not necessarily a bad thing. There are certainly many people who have certifications in different organizations that themselves can be competent and good dog trainers, but that's not because they have the certification, in my opinion. I did a compilation a few years ago of people that were I think they were part of American Pet Dog Trainers or something like that, and they were claiming to be proponents of what's called Lima dog training, but they were twisting the definition of Lima to just mean force-free. And these people were doing these videos, and they couldn't even say what Lima stood for. Like, they were all saying least invasive, minimally aversive. And it's least intrusive, minimally aversive. And these are people that are credentialed by this organization, representing this organization's ideologies on the organization's YouTube page. And they didn't even know what this very fundamental principle of dog training, the acronym, stood for. So take that with a grain of salt. The last green flag that I have is they are transparent. Transparency is golden in an industry that is not regulated. Okay, so they don't hide what their training methods are. They don't hide, if they do corrections, they don't hide corrections. They don't hide anything because they don't need to. People who feel the need to hide the training that they're doing are doing bad training. I do not accept a lot of people who say, well, I can't show this training because some people just won't understand it, or I can't show this training because the YouTube algorithm will censor it. If that is the case, you are doing bad training. People should stand behind what they do, and they should feel comfortable being fully transparent and owning up to and accounting for all of their actions when they're training. So if a trainer is, not letting you know exactly what methods they're using, they can't explain them, even beyond the dog training part, if as a business they're not transparent about their pricing, they're not transparent about the state of their kennels, if they're doing board and trains, things like that, that's something that you should really, really value in a dog trainer and look for in a dog trainer, okay? My last red flag is they have a bad attitude towards the dog. Now, what I mean by this, and this is one of my biggest pet peeves, is they are willing to refer to the dog as a jerk or as an asshole or as stubborn, right? They're willing to paint the dog in human terms. And the reason that this makes me so upset is because your job as a dog trainer, you have two jobs, right? One is to understand the dog, and the second is to help the handlers fix the dog's problems. So, understanding the dog, if you're calling the dog a jerk for behavior, then you're not understanding the dog, or you're just being disingenuous. Because dogs don't do things out of spite, right? Dogs are animals. Dogs do things because they believe the behavior will get them what they want. They're incredibly transactional animals. It's very simple. So a dog is going to show aggression because they believe the aggression will get them what they want. That's it. Not because they're a jerk, not because they're an asshole, not because they're stubborn. Okay? And if you're an actual dog trainer, you would understand that. So referring to the dog as a jerk is just being disingenuous, or just shows that you don't actually understand what's going on. Second of all, you have to help the handler fix the dog's problem. How can you effectively help the handler fix the dog's problem if you're setting the handler up to have a bad attitude, right? You can't fix problems in any area of your life, in any relationship, if you go into it with a bad attitude, right? So why is it any different with the dog, right? We need handlers to change their language, because changing your language changes your thoughts, which affects your efficacy in what you're doing. Our goal is for the handler to be able to fix the problem with the dog and enjoy their dog more and have a better quality of life with them, right? You are best suited to do that when you set them up with the right attitude. Anytime one of my clients calls their dog stubborn, I say, no, he's not stubborn. He just doesn't understand yet. That's why he's training. That's why we're training him, is so that he can understand. He's not stubborn. He's not a jerk. He's doing what he believes is best, and we're going to show him a better way, okay? So trainers that have bad attitudes towards dogs, they can miss me with that, okay? My last gray flag is kind of a weird one, but it's the trainer's personal dog. I am going to be very, very clear by what I mean by this. If the trainer's personal dog is incredibly trained and they can demo amazing things with that dog, that is a plus. You should like that. That should be a good thing. I'm specifically talking about the breed, okay? There's a well-acknowledged thing in the world of marketing and advertising, and it is that attractive people are assumed to be intelligent and assumed to be more competent. It's just a thing. I think the same thing applies in the world of dog training. If somebody's got a sexy dog as their personal dog, we assume things about the handler. And I want to be very clear about this. The reason that every dog trainer that you see on social media has a Malinois is because Malinois were bred to be incredibly easy to train in terms of their drives and their motivations. Not necessarily incredibly easy to own for your average family, but as far as training goes, Malinois are like the Ferrari of the dog world, right? That's why you see every dog trainer with them. Does that mean that the dog trainer who has the Malinois is necessarily going to be able to train your 10-year-old Basset Hound that's not very motivated? That's a different story, right? So again, take it with a grain of salt. You know, it could be a very good thing. Like, let's say that you've got a Doberman and the dog trainer that you are working with has had Dobermans for 10 years and they know a bunch of stuff about the breed. That could be a very good thing, right? But don't just necessarily think because they have a super flashy dog that's doing all these things, that it automatically means they're going to be able to be fixing your specific issue. Again, take it with a grain of salt. I think people put a lot of weight behind it without necessarily thinking about what it means. So I hope this helps clear up some things as you're looking for your dog trainer. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you next time.